Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan, marhaban. Welcome everyone to our 6th session on Seerah or AI session. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this a session that is purely for His sake, and may all of us bidnillah benefit from it by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulil kareem amma ba'd. So in today's session, inshallah ta'ala, I'll be looking at one particular category. So we know we have 3 segments. So we look at the seerah from a perspective. What are the lessons we can take from the seerah bi'idhnillah? And then inshallah ta'ala, we also have a segment. We look at some commonly known things that we hear about from the seerah, but just to recognize that these are weak, some of which may be fabricated, some of which, of course, it is unconfirmed. And then we look at the session where we call it the Sahih Reinforcer, just to look at a clip of something that is authentic, since we would have just done a weak buster segment. It's just to balance it off, bi'idhnillah. So in today's session, inshallah ta'ala, the particular thing that we will be looking at is that of, with regards to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his attitude towards children. And we're going to look at several examples, bi'idhnillah, with regards to his attitude towards children, and then the lessons we can take. So from the text that we are utilizing, it has 12 examples. So I have reduced them to 10, but then I have put the 12 lessons that we can take from these examples, bi'idhnillah. And as the introduction, the book that we utilize is inspired from this ayah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. That we have not sent you Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, but as a mercy to the universe, al-alamin. And this, bi'idhnillah, is something that as Muslims, in learning this, in understanding this, we have to recognize that the Prophet ﷺ was a mercy to us, and then we have to try our best to maximize on the benefit that we can obtain from this. So as I said, inshallah ta'ala, the main part of our session will be looking at the kindness of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam towards children. So now let's look at that. The first of the examples I would like to use is this example, where the Prophet ﷺ, and I put a sentence as for the example, that his action towards children, it consistently modeled mercy and compassion, showing that kindness to the young is actually an essential part of our akhlaq, an essential part of the Islamic character. So this shows this very clearly. The example that I would like to use, and there are numerous examples, one of them was where the companion Mahmud ibn al-Rubay radiallahu anhu, he said that I remember the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam taking water from a bucket and squirting it from his mouth onto my face. At the time, I was 5 years old. So he remembers this. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, amongst the scholars, they say that this was done. Now, Rubay said he was just 5. So he doesn't know the reason, but he says he remembered this incident. The scholars, there's a difference of opinion as to why the Prophet ﷺ did this. He didn't state why it was done, but of the 2 reasons, both are reconciled that they are good reasons. So one of the opinion is that he either did this playfully with the child, just to, be attentive to the child, or secondly, with the intention of blessing the child, because we know that everything from the Prophet ﷺ is blessed. So we know that, yes, the water from his wudu, his saliva, we know this. So there are 2 positions, there are 2 opinions that says it is possible that he wanted to bless the child while he did this. The other instance says that it is possible that he was just being playful with the child. Sheikh bin Baz rahimahullah, he takes the second position where he says it's possible Prophet ﷺ was just playing with the child, giving him a dose of good nature, teasing him, just a good nature tease. So what is the lesson we can take from this one? Just this one, bi'idhnillah. Being a role model of mercy influences children to adopt similar values. So one of the first lessons we can take with their attitude towards children is that being a role model of mercy, it influences them to adopt similar values. So demonstrating compassion in our action, it teaches children to be kind and caring towards others. So if we are kind and caring, then they will adopt these values of being kind and caring towards others. So this is one. And as I said, I'm going to use some examples, specific examples from the seerah, since this is a Seerah class. So the first one was with Mahmud ibn al-Rubayy, radiallahu anh, and he mentioned that he was 5 years old when this happened, and this just shows us the importance of being merciful towards children. The second example I'd like to use is making time for children. And for this example, I would like to use the incident of Jabir ibn Samura, radiallahu anh. There was on one occasion, he said, I prayed the first salah with the Prophet ﷺ, and when the prayer was concluded, he went out to his family, and I went with him. So he said, when the salah was concluded, he went out with his family, and I went with him. Along the way, he was welcomed by a group of children. So along the way, going to meet his family, he was welcomed by a group of children. And subhanAllah, listen to this example. It says, Jabir, radiallahu anh, he says, he began to pass his hands over their cheeks. And Jabir, radiallahu anh, was also a youngster. He was also a youngster at that particular time. So he says, he began to pass his hands over their cheeks, one child at a time. Meaning he was ensuring that he didn't leave anyone out. So every child felt special. So that entire group of children, even though he was busy going to do something, he took the time and he put his hands over the cheek of each child, one at a time. And he continued to do so until he reached the last child. As for me, that's Jabir, again another child, he was with him, and subhanAllah, Jabir was traveling with him, and he still touched Jabir because he knew Jabir was a child. So it's not as if all of those children came and then he touched them, but he knew Jabir was with him. He was also a child. He may get jealous, saying, how is he playing with them and I am with him? He also touched him, and Jabir said, as for me, he passed his hand over my cheeks, and I felt a coolness or wind-like quality of the touch of the hands as if it was just removed from the basket of a perfume vendor. The example he was using, he said his hand felt so cool like it came from the basket of a perfume vendor. And generally, that was the example he used because generally, when a perfume vendor went into their basket, their hand would become cool because of the contact with the perfume that they were carrying. So this, subhanAllah, what is the lesson we can take from this? That he was going out, a group of children came, and I don't want to say they came and interfere with him, but they came to meet him, they came to greet him, they loved him. And he ensured that since he touched one of their cheeks, he touched every single child to ensure there was attention. And even the child that was already traveling with him, he touched that child as well to recognize and make time for the child. What is the lesson? Engaging with children and giving them attention, even amidst responsibilities, it helps build their confidence and sense of being valued. That this is something that, subhanAllah, the wisdom that we can take from how he lived and how he treated everyone, it is phenomenal. The lesson, one of the lessons, and there are many lessons we can take. So don't think that the lessons I put in the slides is everything. It is not comprehensive, right? So engaging them and giving them attention, even amidst responsibility, helps in building their confidence and their sense of being valued. SubhanAllah, that is regarding the second example. The third example that I would use, inshallah ta'ala, it is more than one, and this I've merged it. Physical affection, inclusiveness, and encouragement. And some of the examples, subhanAllah, that we can use, that the Prophet ﷺ would include children in gatherings, allowing them to feel valued, right? As seen when he placed Hassan and Hussein on his lap, radiallahu anhuma. That he had his gathering and he placed his grandsons on his lap to let them feel included. That yes, this is, you all are okay. I'm not going to put you all aside and put you away. But he said he placed them on his lap so that they feel included within the crowd, that they were a part of it, right? And when we look at that, one of the lessons we can take is that inclusion, including the help of children, it develops a sense of belonging and self-worth. That they believe that they have a purpose, that they serve a purpose, that they're not just there and you're ignoring them like they don't matter. It teaches them the value of community and respect for others. So it teaches them the value of community and respect for others. And looking at this, there's another hadith again. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh said that while Aqra bin Habis radiallahu anh was seated in his company, the Prophet ﷺ, he kissed Al-Hasan ibn Ali. So he kissed his grandson. Upon seeing him do that, Al-Aqra radiallahu anh said, verily I have 10 children, and I have never kissed a single one of them. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ looked at him and then said, Man la yarhamu, la yurham. Mercy is not shown to the one who is not merciful himself. Subhanallah. The Prophet ﷺ said, now this man was boasting that how man he was, and this is in Sahih Bukhari. So this is an authentic hadith. where Abu Hurairah said, radiallahu, and he said that Al-Aqra radiallahu, and a companion, that the culture was that, yeah, men don't do those lovey stuff. Men don't do that. So upon seeing that, when the Prophet ﷺ kissed Hassan radiallahu, his grandson, the man said, verily, I have 10 children. So he boasted, I have 10 children, and I have never kissed a single one of them. The Prophet ﷺ warned him, the mercy that he shows. He said, Man la yarhamu la yurham. That mercy is not shown to the one who is not merciful himself. Subhanallah. In another hadith, in another narration, again in Sahih Bukhari and in Sahih Muslim, Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that a Bedouin once went to the Prophet ﷺ and said, you kiss your children, but we do not kiss ours. That the Bedouin, he came, because he saw the Prophet ﷺ, how he showed affection to children. And the Bedouin said, because they're rough, you know, rough, people say you have to go rough and tough and harsh, you have to be macho, you can't grow your boy like a sissy, and all type of statements. So then they said, you kiss your children, but we do not kiss ours. The Prophet ﷺ replied, he said, Awa amliku laka an taza'allah min qablika ar-rahmah. That, and can I help you to be merciful when Allah has removed mercy from your heart? Prophet ﷺ said, listen, and I just mentioned the translation again. Can I help you to be merciful when Allah has removed mercy from your heart? So subhanallah, it shows the importance of being merciful to children, showing physical affection, including them and affection. So the Prophet ﷺ, he would kiss them and show them affection openly. And these are the ahadith that I just mentioned, bi'idhnillah. One of the lessons we can take is that physical expression of love, whether it be hugging, kissing, they are essential in making children feel secure and loved. It builds a strong emotional bond between the child and the one who is giving care. So this is something that, again, another lesson that we have to take, and especially as men. So yes, mothers love their children, and a lot of that you may find sisters showing love to children. But as men, many times it is a cultural thing. A lot of the time, and I really don't like using the word cultural, because really isn't, there's no culture in it. But there is something within the society wherein men are not supposed to be loving, right? Men are not supposed to show affection as if it's a sign of weakness. And this Prophet ﷺ said that if you are not showing mercy, you can't put mercy in somebody's heart when Allah has already removed that mercy from their heart. So again, another lesson we can take, the Prophet ﷺ, he showed affection, inclusiveness, and encouragement towards children. Number 4, subhanallah, is the Prophet ﷺ, he prayed for blessings and goodness for children, including invoking blessings upon the children of companions. And subhanallah, one of the things that we can take from this, and I'll use two of the examples, inshallah ta'ala, that Usama bin Zayd radiallahu anhu, he said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam would take me and place me on one of his legs, and he would seat Al-Hasan bin Ali on the other, radiallahu anhu, on the other. So Usama bin Zayd and Hassan bin Ali radiallahu anhu place us on both legs, one on each leg. Then he would bring his 2 legs together and say, Allahumma arhamhuma fa inni arhamuha. Subhanallah. Which says, oh Allah, have mercy on them, for indeed I have mercy on them. And this, subhanallah, he would make dua for them. He would make dua for children. And it was clear, subhanallah, in the dua that he would make for them. He would make, whether it be for his grandchildren or the children of the companions, he would make dua for them. And this just shows, subhanallah, how important it is to show love to children and make dua for them, whether they are our children or not. As the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't specify that this has to be my child or it's not my child. No, he showed love for the child regardless. And subhanallah, there's another example I'd like to mention about a female, a young girl. Because yes, we mentioned 2 boys. We mentioned Usama bin Zayd, Hassan radiallahu anhu. And subhanallah, Khalid, as she was known, Khalid radiallahu anha, she was originally from Abyssinia. So she was an Abyssinian. Well, she was a girl. So she narrates the hadith. And she says, while she was a small child, she went with her father to visit the Prophet ﷺ. So she went with him to visit the Prophet ﷺ, and she was wearing a yellow-colored shirt, right? So upon seeing the Prophet ﷺ, he playfully said, Sana, Sana. Now, in the Abyssinian tongue, it means good, good. So what the Prophet ﷺ, he was playfully building a relationship with the girl in her native language, something that she understood. So even though he didn't speak their language, right, he knew that this was something good within their language. So he said, Sana, Sana. And when he said it, she got comfortable around him until there was something on his back and she was playing with it. Then her father, of course, sometimes you see your child playing with somebody as a parent, you reproach the child. You tell him, stop bothering the brother, stop bothering the sister. The father, the father reproach his daughter and tell her, leave the messenger, leave him. Prophet said, leave her, allow her to play, allow her to play. And then, of course, the Prophet then he made dua for her, subhanAllah. He made a dua, and subhanAllah, he made a dua to the extent where he said, oh Allah, allow her to live a long life, longer than the clothes that she has on, right? And subhanAllah, it is mentioned, even Ibn Hajar, in Fath al-Bari, rahimahullah, he says that from amongst them, it was said about her that she lived a very long life, that nobody lived as long as her. Whatever that meant, be it that she was the oldest amongst the companion, she lived to the oldest age, whatever that meant, it meant that his dua was, Prophet dua was accepted, in which Khalid, she lived a long life. So subhanAllah, a lesson we can take for this, praying for the well-being of children is a sign of sincere care and concern for their future. So as Muslims, don't just make dua for our own children. The sunnah is make dua for children. So you see children, make dua for them. So it looks like they're making mischief, make dua. Oh Allah, reform them and make them the best. That make dua for children. This is from the sunnah. This is from the seerah. Make dua that they have a good future. And it emphasizes the importance of spiritual well-being in addition to physical care. So this is another lesson we can take from the seerah, that make dua for children. That when you, whether it be your child or not, make sincere dua for them. That sincere care and concern for their future, we have to have it if we're truly believers. Example number 5, the Prophet ﷺ, many of us have heard of this, those who haven't. He shortened the salah when he heard a child crying because he understood the distress it could cause the mother. And the hadith that we get this from, again, this hadith is in Sahih Bukhari. And I just took a clip of the translation in the interest of time, which translates to mean, verily, I sometimes stand for salah, for prayer, intending to prolong its length. So the Prophet ﷺ already starts salah, having an intention what he's going to recite. And many times when you're making salah, especially when you're leading the jama'ah, you kind of plan what you're going to recite because you want to ensure that you're focused in the salah and not after you finish Surah Fatiha, then you're trying to figure out what to recite next. And sometimes that does happen. But most of the time you try to think, okay, which surah should I read? So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, I intended to prolong the salah. But can you imagine? He's there thinking, I'm going to read Surah Waqi'ah, or I'm going to read Surah Rahman, ready to read Surah Rahman, in the mood to read Surah Rahman. But then I hear the crying of a baby, and I quicken the pace of my prayer, disliking the idea of making matters difficult for that child's mother. Subhanallah. That even though he was intent on reciting a long surah, he decided to cut it short when he heard the child crying so that the mother could be able to concentrate in her salah. Because clearly if he was reciting in that one rakah so long, the mother would want to break that salah to tend to the child. So he would hasten it, so at least the mother would say, okay, the salah is soon finished, so I'll focus in my salah. When the salah is finished, then I tend to the child. And subhanAllah, this just shows the mercy, again, even as leaders, that we need to have. So as leaders, we should be sensitive to the needs and the emotions of children and those who are responsible for them. So we have to be sensitive to children and those who are responsible for them. So adjusting our actions to alleviate discomfort, it shows true empathy. And this shows true empathy, that we put ourselves in the shoes so we understand. So whatever we can do to adjust our actions to relieve their discomfort, then this, subhanAllah, is the best. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُمْ, that we came, that يُعَسِّرُونَ, to make things easy. That the Prophet ﷺ also said that indeed we should make things easy for the people. يَسِّرُوا وَلَا تُعَسِّرُوا. Make things easy for the people and don't make things difficult. So this, subhanAllah, is a prime example to show us how he tried his best to make things easy for people. So even the salah, that he shortened his salah so that it would be easy for the mother to tend to the child. Number 6, example 6, the Prophet ﷺ, he consoled that child over the death of his pet bird, and he showed understanding of the child's case. SubhanAllah, for us it's like this is a menial thing. This child had a pet bird, and the Prophet ﷺ made up a poem to comfort him. Ya Aba Umair, ma fa'ala nughair. The Prophet ﷺ made up this line just to comfort him. Anas radiallahu anh mentioned this narration where he said, of all people, the Prophet ﷺ had the best manners. He said, I had a brother whose name was Abu Umair. The Prophet ﷺ once came to us. I think that at the time Abu Umair was just a newly weaned child, meaning that he was like 2-3 years old, barely just finished weaning. So 2 or 3 years old thereabout. He said he believed his brother was about 2 or 3 years old. And the Prophet ﷺ showed concern for this young child. He said, Ya Aba Umair, ma fa'ala Nughair. He said, Oh Abu Umair, what has the Nughair done? And this the Prophet ﷺ was rhyming it so that the child, and we know children love rhyming and they love this. So the Prophet ﷺ used these plain words in order to cheer up Abu Umair because he was sad because that pet bird had just died. And this, subhanAllah, the lesson we can take, acknowledging a child's emotion, no matter how small the cause seems. So as adults, it might seem trivial, like that's mean, stop, man. What are you crying for? That doesn't, don't worry about it. Stop crying, right? That this, subhanAllah, he showed that indeed show concern for their emotion. It is crucial to their emotional development. What it teaches us again is empathy and the importance of being present for others in their time of need. So not just for children, but for all others, and even for children, because sometimes we will overlook them because they are small, they don't understand life yet. There's nothing serious that's happening in their life. So sometimes these are the thoughts that we have, but if we are truly believers and we truly want to live that example, the one who have the best character, then these are the examples that we need to take and implement within our lives, ibn Allah. Example 7 is gentleness in teaching. Subhanallah, he was very gentle in teaching. The Prophet ﷺ, he corrected the mistakes of children gently, such as when he advised a child about eating with the right hand. So this was one of the examples. When he advised a child about eating with the right, he didn't reprimand the child. He didn't hit the left hand. He was gentle in teaching the child. One of the lessons we can take from this again is that instruction and correction should be done with kindness. So a lot of the time people believe when you're teaching children, you have to be rough. You have to be harsh. You have to put them in a boot camp for them to get discipline. This is not the sunnah. This is not the sunnah. Instruction and correction should be done with kindness, making the learning experience positive rather than discouraging. Because when it is negative and discouraging, they're only going to use that right hand in front of you, right? But afterwards, forget it. And sometimes they will even try to spite you to use the left hand, even when they know how to use the right. And this is something we have to be mindful of. So this approach, it helps in fostering love for learning and respect for guidance. So look at the wisdom. And as I said, there's so much wisdom to take from these lessons in the Seerah. That one, it makes the learning experience positive and not discouraging. Also, people start love to learn and they respect guidance. So when they're guided, they have respect for guidance. Number 8 that I've selected, as I said, I've consolidated these into 8, ibn Allah. Patience with children's nature. Patience with their nature. And again, this was again with his grandchildren. Prophet ﷺ, he showed patience with his grandchildren. So when he went in sujood, they would go on his back. And one of the companions who mentioned the hadith, again, another sahih, authentic hadith, he mentioned the hadith, and subhanAllah, he mentioned that the sajda seemed very long, that they were in sujood for quite some time. And after the salah, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned in the hadith, he said, all that happened was that my son, referring to his grandson, was that my son climbed onto me and I disliked the idea of rushing him. Rather, I wanted to wait until he finished doing what he wanted to do. That is until he decided to come off his back. Subhanallah. This was the mercy of the Prophet ﷺ. He was in salah. He was in salah. And his grandson, that he referred to him as his son, climbed onto his back while he was in sujood. And the Prophet ﷺ said he didn't want to rush him off his back. He said he waited until he was finished doing what he wanted to do, and then the Prophet ﷺ came out of sujood. So what can we take from this? What lesson can we take from this? Understanding that children act according to their age. So his grandson was not 8 years old. So we have to be careful and mindful. Sometimes people use hadith and put some interpretation which is ridiculous. So his grandson was not 8 or 10 years old, right, where he didn't understand. But understand that children act according to their age and nature, and encourage. So what does it encourage? Is patience and prevent harshness. So we have to be patient with them and don't be harsh with them. It allows them to express themselves freely without fear. So when you finish, you can say to them, when I'm performing salah, we can play when I'm finished, right? Rather, than reprimand or pushing them off, we're injuring them or something like that. That doesn't show mercy, because then they will not want to express themselves because of fear of negative repercussions. So number 8, we should have patience with children's nature. Number 9, encouraging good character. SubhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ, he would praise children for good behavior and encourage positive action. He would praise them. So he would congratulate them. Many times, unfortunately, as Muslims, we only speak about the faults of children. So we look all the problems with the child we speak about, but all the good they are doing, doesn't matter what they are doing. What if it is good, you do, and what you do, what we do, as unfortunately, is that all the good they do, when they do something wrong. So for example, you see a child and probably the child throw one of their shoe in the masjid, and you mention that you threw the shoe in the masjid, and that's why I don't understand why they are learning Quran and why they are making sunnah and why they want to pray at the masjid, and all of the good things now become bad things because they threw a shoe in the masjid. So you mention 5 or 6 or 7 good things that the child is doing, and you wrangle it up with one thing that they did that you didn't like to make it look like they did 8 wrong things. And subhanAllah, we have to be mindful. That is not the sunnah, and it clearly means that we don't have good thought for Muslims. And it clearly means that mercy is not within our hearts. And the Prophet ﷺ made a profound statement to this man, that how can I give you mercy when Allah has removed mercy from your heart? And this is unfortunately that many people, we have lost mercy within our hearts. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it return to all of our hearts. Ameen. So in example 9, the lesson we can take again, the positive reinforcement, it fosters a development of good character in children. Good character. So you recognize and praise their good deeds, and it helps to instill virtues like honesty, kindness, and respect. The last example I will mention amongst the 10, then I will summarize about 12 lessons we can take from the 10 examples, is he celebrated their joys. The Prophet ﷺ would engage in simple activities. When a child wanted to play, he would play with them. He would race with them. We know he raced with his wife, and he would do this with the other children. He engaged children, as we see, subhanAllah, with the examples that we used before. So a lesson we can take, sharing in children's joys, and understand, our Muslims, these were not his children, his biological children. So a lot of the time we may look at it and say, okay, we can do this time with our own children. We're not talking about just our own children. It might be easy with our own children. The Prophet ﷺ did this with children in general. So the lesson we are taking is with children in general, not just our own blood, not our blood alone, but all children. The lesson, sharing in children's joys and engaging in activities that bring them happiness, it strengthens bond and make them feel valued. It teaches them that their happiness is important. Some of my grammar here is mixed up, but it teaches them that their happiness is important. So subhanAllah, of these, I'll summarize the lessons that we can take. So of the 10 examples, I've summarized 12 lessons bi'idhnillah. So with regards to kindness towards children, mercy, model mercy and kindness to shape their character. So be role models for mercy and kindness to shape the character of children. Make time for engaging with children, even when we are busy. Show affection to build security and love. Include children in activities, fostering a sense of belonging. Be empathetic and adjust, right, to alleviate a child's discomfort. Acknowledge their emotions, no matter how minor they may seem. Teach gently, turning corrections into positive learning experiences. Be patient with the nature and behavior of children. Encourage good behavior with positive reinforcement. Share in their joys and create moments of happiness. And balance discipline with love. So balance discipline with love to ensure effective guidance. Again, balance discipline with love to ensure effective guidance. Why do I repeat that so much? Many times we say because we love our children, why we do this. And then when they become spoiled brats and they become rebellious adults, we then regret. We can't do that. Balance discipline with love. It is extremely important. If we love them, we want them to be obedient servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't say, because I love them, I make them decide if they love Islam. That's a joke. That doesn't make, you don't love them. Because Islam is the best thing. And if you love your children, you want the best for them. So don't say, because I love them, I really don't tell them about Islam. I just Let them, if they want to know, they will find out. If they ask, no, that's not love. That's hate. It means you hate, you despise your children. Because when you love someone, you love the best. And Islam is the best. So encourage them towards Islam. Don't say you're not going to teach them. You just leave them to do what they feel like doing because you love them. That's not the case. So again, balance discipline with love to ensure effective guidance. Now, inshallah ta'ala, our second segment. Now, for this, subhanallah, I know sometimes questions come up with this, and inshallah ta'ala, I suspect there may be again, and maybe there won't be, maybe we know. Of the week buster segment. Number one, during the hijrah to Medina, many of us heard that the Prophet ﷺ, that when he and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was in the cave of Thawr, Ghar of Thawr, they heard this example that Asma bin Abu Bakr radiallahu anha used to bring them food in the evening, right? And she used to carry the camels to graze. So I mean, she would go back, they would graze back again. So they would know the path that they traveled on. That story, absolutely not true. So that story that mentioned that Asma bin Abu Bakr radiallahu anha, that she used to carry food to them at the cave, no truth within that story. There's no truth whatsoever. What is true is that the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, they carried food with them before beginning their journey at the noon, and Asma radiallahu anha, she assisted them and tied the food containers, right? She tied them by cutting her waist belt. So she allowed them, she cut her waist belt and assist them to carry the food. That is what is true. But this thing about she used to walk with the camel, walk with the sheep and the camel so that they couldn't track her footsteps, and she used to go back and forth. No, there is no truth in it. This is only narrated by Ibn Ishaq, and he has not brought an authentic chain regarding it. So this story itself, as we said, is not narrated anywhere else. So that's myth buster, weak buster number one. That she used to carry food to them to the cave. Again, that story is not true. The second, the story of the spider web and the two pigeons. So many of us heard again with the cave that the spider built a web and then pigeons put a nest. So the persons would believe that no, nobody, this has not been disturbed, because there's no way somebody's in the cave and then the spider build a web. Oh, there's time for the spider to build a web, the birds to have a nest, the pigeon to have a nest. That many people they said that this is what detracted them. Again, this narration is not true. There is no authentic hadith, and the Sheikh Al-Albani mentioned that there is no authentic hadith regarding this. And Sheikh Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah, he said it was neither a nest nor a pigeon. So there are some narrations which says that yes, there was a spider web and a nest was also there, and some says there were actually two pigeons there at the top of the cave trying to conceal the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr. But again, there is no authentic hadith with regards to this scenario. Again, within the cave. The third issue. We also heard that there was a report that when they were entering the cave, Abu Bakr, he said to the Prophet ﷺ, let me enter first. And all the holes, he used to put his fingers and his feet and block up the hole so that if any insect came. And then it was said that a snake stung him. And he said that he didn't want the Prophet ﷺ to wake because he was resting on his chest. And this thing was so painful that a drop of the tear fell on the Prophet ﷺ and it awoke him. And then the Prophet ﷺ realized Abu Bakr was in pain. Again, not an authentic narration. So this narration, there is nothing authentic about this statement. But again, Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, he was a very virtuous companion. He has many qualities that are authentic that we have seen in ahadith. So alhamdulillah, that is the week buster segment for today with regarding those 3 pointers. Now, what is Sahih? The Sahih reinforcer. So quickly, inshallah ta'ala, just to ensure that we can entertain some questions and even finish before our slated time. The Sahih reinforcer, the foremost in accepting Islam. Ibn Ishaq rahimahullah, he said that Khadija bin Khuwaylid radiallahu anha believed in him and testified to the truth which he had brought from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She supported him. She was the first one to believe in Allah and his messenger and to testify to the truth which he sallallahu alaihi wasallam had brought. So it's mentioned that Khadija radiallahu anha, she was the foremost in accepting Islam. There's a difference of opinion in terms of reconciling who was next. So with regards to who was next, there are authentic hadith where Ali radiallahu anhu said that he was next. There's another authentic narration which says Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was next. So in reconciling it, there are some who say that Ali radiallahu anhu was the first child, being about 8 or 9 years old, but Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was the first free adult. And then Zayd radiallahu anhu was the first slave. But bi'idhnillah, with regards to those, that can be reconciled. Those were the first and foremost. So the hadith I selected was this authentic hadith narrated by Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, where he said, the first people to declare their Islam publicly were 7. The first people to declare their Islam publicly were 7. The Messenger of Allah, Abu Bakr, Ammar, and his mother Sumayya, Suhaib, Bilal, and Miqdad. With regards to the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah protected him through his paternal uncle Abu Talib. So even though he made it public, Allah protected him. With regards to Abu Bakr, Allah protected him through his people, because his tribe, his people. As for the rest, the idolaters seized them. So as for the rest, the others who made it public, Ammar, radiallahu anhu, Sumayya, radiallahu anha, Suhaib, Bilal, radiallahu anhu, Miqdad, radiallahu anhu, all of them. So the Prophet ﷺ, he was protected by his uncle, Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu, by his tribe. The others, they were not protected. So the idolaters seized them, made them wear coats of chain mail, and exposed them to intense heat of the sun. There was none of them, except he under coercion did what they wanted them to do, except Bilal. Everybody else did what they wanted them to do because they were forced. Sumayya radiallahu anha, we know she didn't, but she died. She was killed in it. Ammar radiallahu anha, he made a statement saying that he don't believe, but this was in force, and it hurt him. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no, that was by force. You didn't mean it within your heart. That was from your tongue. So you're forgiven. There's no problem when you are forced to say something and you say it in order to get relief. Nothing is wrong with that. All of them, they were forced to make statements that they could not make. As I said, Sumayya radiallahu anha, she didn't, and she was killed. But the others, Bilal radiallahu anhu, he was the only one that he decided that he would have to be killed. He said, Ahadun, Ahadun. And he constantly said it. Even they took him to the streets of Makkah, he said, Ahad, Ahad, one, one. So this, subhanAllah, is up amongst the authentic narrations, bi'idhnillah. Jazakumullah khairan. So inshallah ta'ala, the floor is now open to discussion, bi'idhnillah. So if there are any questions or comments, you may unmute your mic, or you may mention in the chat. If not, then inshallah ta'ala, we will end our session here, bi'idhnillah. Are there any questions or comments or clarification? What was that? If the weak buster is in the 40 hadith, no. So these are weak narrations, so they're not in, no. So for that, subhanallah, yeah. So for the weak buster, so the question that was asked, so for the weak buster, I'll just mention some more explanation. So the one quickly, I did explain the first one regarding Asma radiallahu anha, that the only thing that's authentic that she did help them tie their food, and she took off her waist belt and they used it to tie their container on them. The one regarding the spider web, as we said, Sheikh Albani said that there is no authentic hadith on it, right? So he said there's no authentic hadith on it. He said one narration on it is classified as weak, right? And there's some dispute regarding the chain regarding this. So again, and we'll mention this, that when something is weak, it doesn't mean that it is a lie. What they're saying is that, of course, there is some defect. There is some deficiency in the narration. Right. So with regards to this, he said that there is nothing authentic on it. The one hadith that Sheikh Al-Albani mentioned in his book, Seerah al-Da'ifa, his book that he speaks about the weak hadith, he classified the hadith that mentions that issue as something that is weak. And this is regarding the spider web and the pigeons. The other one I mentioned with regards to Abu Bakr radiallahu an, again, it is mentioned that this statement regarding Abu Bakr radiallahu an, again, it is weak. There is no authentic hadith regarding that. And there are other things to mention his virtuous character. So this doesn't mean that he didn't protect the Prophet ﷺ. He always protected the Prophet ﷺ. But this incident itself, it says that no, this is not an authentic. It's not authentic at all. None of them are authentic. Now, so again, if there are no questions, then we will wrap up, inshallah ta'ala. If there are any questions or clarification, then we will wrap up if there isn't any. وَجَزَاكُمُ khairan kathiran. May Allah reward you all immensely. Again, it's very late, so we will wrap up. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you all. Shukran jazilan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.